humanitarian, and I appreciate what Councilmember Carty said about the library. This is the kind of thing we need to look at, is if we don't have the money to pay for it, you don't pay for it. And our general fund is there and been built up over 20 years' time so that we do have the ability to pay the bills here in the city. We're short $150,000. Now, we could have blown all that off and thrown $1 million at it and covered everything. It would have been a drop down from $5 million to $4 million. Are we going to do the same thing next year? Maybe. If we have a lawsuit in one of the mobile home parks that costs $1 million, can we have it and cover it? We're looking at a bridge that has to be replaced, that's required to be replaced. We have 90% of it covered, and it was a $9 million figure. That still leaves $1 million to come up with. So that's what the reserve is going to be for. I appreciate what you're saying about the nonprofits that have come in. They do a phenomenal job, and most of these folks out here are volunteers. And I suggest that one way to get involved is volunteer more. You know, it's not just a matter of throwing money at it. And everybody in this room understands. It does take time, and we will overcome this. That's why this is not something that's been dealt with in the last 45 minutes. The mayor and I have been on this committee for, what, 3, 4, 5 months? And we meet at least twice a month. And we keep going through these numbers, and staff keeps doing a phenomenal job bringing back different ideas. And we have brought ideas to the council. It's always there. The budget's always there for you to look at. We have this for the whole year. If you see something in it, come back and say, hey, why are we doing this? It's not a one-time deal. It's all year for us. And that's a council member's responsibility.
Okay. Is that for you? Can I
appreciate
respond?
It. Sure.
Okay. First of all, look, with respect to the law enforcement contract, those changes don't take effect until July 1st. So you're not going to see any changes to our law enforcement contract today as a result of the votes that we cast 2 weeks ago. And this is the second time you said that, so I just have to go on record to point that out. So we're not talking about the existing contract. We're talking about the new contract in the new fiscal year. So instead of seeing 4, you might only see 1. But whatever. The point is that we made that decision. I understand the budget process, okay? I spent the entire day at the county budget. I've been to 15 years of county budget hearings, okay? I also probably am the only one up here who attended the Goleta City Council budget hearings. So I understand how budget hearings work. And I'm here to tell you that this is the most abbreviated budget process that I'm aware of anywhere in the county. Now, that in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it happens to be a fact. And I just think that probably for the majority of the years that I've been on the council, it's been perfectly fine because we've had more money than we knew what to do with, and we were giving it away, and it wasn't a big deal. This year is different. Last year was a little bit different, but this year has been very different, and frankly, the process hasn't been different. I guess that's my basic point, is that while these are unprecedented times, this has not been an unprecedented process. It's been a relatively consistent process for the last 6 years that I've been on this council, and it seems to me that this fiscal year really did, I think, require a little bit more time and a little bit more analysis and a little bit more pushing back. What I would have liked to have seen while we were discussing cuts to our law enforcement department, for lack of a better term, but I think everybody understands what I mean, is putting that up against other departments. Figuring out if we are only going to dip into reserves to a percentage, then how much of that do we want to use for our law enforcement? How much do we want to use for our public works department? But that discussion didn't take place. Now, it may have taken place in the budget committee, but the budget committee is not the city council. It's simply to advise. And I wasn't advised by the budget committee with respect to how we are going to differentiate certain decisions from across all departments. That discussion has not taken place in a public forum. Now, I'm not here to condemn it. I'm just here to point it out that I think it's problematic. And I hope that I only have one more budget hearing left next year. I hope maybe we'll consider doing it a little bit differently. I think that the public would be well served by having more time and more attention given to these issues. I really just don't think we're giving these issues nearly enough time, particularly when we make such important fundamental decisions with respect to our public safety infrastructure. Now, you can characterize it any way you want, my friend, but I would submit to you, and it's on tape, all you got to do is go to Kevin and get the DVD when I called up Lieutenant Kelly and I asked him, if I cast the vote that's being proposed, will this community be less safe? And he stood there at the podium and didn't say a word for about 20 seconds. And what did he say? He said, the community will be less safe, they just won't know it. Now, I don't know how anybody can come to a different interpretation of what the lieutenant said. They'll be less safe, they just won't know it. Well, I know it because he told me, and that's why I couldn't cast a vote to dismantle our public safety infrastructure when we have $6 million sitting in reserves, earning low interest and fully liquid. I tend to be an optimist. I tend to be a bull when it comes to the market. I think that this recession is certainly bad, and it's certainly frustrating that we're now in our 44th month of a recovery with absolutely no job growth. I would submit that this is unique to California, that the economy is actually growing in other places of the country, but California, where we're unique in our ability to undermine our ability to grow for some reason. It's always a regulatory regime that seems to basically just dominate every public policy matter. But the fact of the matter is there's been $10 trillion of new wealth created in the United States in the last 2 years. So the point is, there's money out there in the community. There's money out there in the community, and I would submit that Santa Barbara is probably getting its fair share of that $10 trillion. So what I'd like to do as a policymaker is I'd like to make these dollars stretch further. And so to the extent that we can target some of these dollars to CARP Cares, rape crisis, the library, that, in my view, is the right strategic approach, because then what they can do is they can leverage those dollars through volunteers, corporate donations, and foundations. So it seems to me we really do have an opportunity to take $1, make it $2, without it costing the taxpayers $2, yet still delivering the programs and services that this community desperately needs in order for these kids to stay out of trouble and for them to have something positive to do. And I just think that my job as a council member and pretty close to a volunteer is to just try to manage our resources a little bit better. And that's really my only attempt here, is to do that. Again, I want to make it clear, absolutely clear. I do not intend or mean to disrespect anybody on this council. I understand that we all come to these conclusions with our own unique perspective and biases, and we all want nothing but what's best for Carpinteria. And you've done a fantastic job of managing the resources of this city for 20 years, and I really do mean that. You're to be congratulated for that. I boast all the time that Carpinteria is probably the most fiscally conservative city in the county, and I don't take any credit for that. Okay, I don't take any credit for that. I'm pretty progressive when it comes to giving money to these community service programs because I believe in them, and I believe that we have the resources to do it. And frankly, I think it's immoral to not do it when we have the ability to do it, and then stand back and just hope nothing happens. To me, that's gambling with the public safety of this community, and that's not something I'm willing to do.
Thank you, and thank you for those words. Any comments? Go ahead. Councilmember Reddington.
Oh, gosh, I guess I'm kind of, after that, Joe, I'm not sure if I'm speechless or speechful. Anyway, and I don't mean that in any way. I like your idea of the social services. I think it's very important that we do look at the community services and the $150,000. I think it is important that in these unprecedented times that we have unprecedented review. I agree with you. I would like to see our social services funding. If we could, I would be willing to look at that $150,000 to utilize the social service funding to see if, however, my only concern about that is please, Joe, don't use this as a wedge for the sheriff's department. I think that in some ways undermines this process. And I'll tell you why. If you look at the slide, could we bring up the slide that shows how much the sheriff's department of our budget takes for our public safety? 42.1%. Now, as I recall reading in the newspapers, we all the way along, our employees have taken a cut in their salaries, right? And have the sheriff's department taken a cut in their salaries? That would be my rhetorical question. So if we all want to play on the same playing field, then I think it's very important. And this is spoken from my father my father was a master tailor. I'm going to go into who I am a little bit. And he made the uniforms for the Illinois State Police, and they wouldn't be dressed without my father. So he used to go around the state of Illinois in a van and dress the top brass. So I know the importance of police officers, and I have enjoyed the benevolence of the police officers for a long time of my life. But when I look at that 42.1%, and I see that all across the board, the social services, our employees, all the way down the line are taking cuts. It concerns me that the sheriff's department took what I'm understanding is a fairly generous raise. So until we can get that equalized, I think that we need to all be on the same playing field here. But I would look into the $150,000 for the community services, because I do agree in the idea that if we are going to look at public safety and reductions in sheriff's department employees, that we do need, that's the yin and the yang, is to support the community services for our quality of life. And I hope that my council members would consider that. Thank you.
I agree,
Cardy.
through the mayor,
Yes.
sorry.
Sir.
I agree our city's faced with many challenges. And I disagree with you, Joe. I think what it's called here is living within our means.
Yeah.
And I think our city staff has done a very good job of careful, prudent financial planning. And like I say, this is living within our means. I don't think we're dismantling the sheriff's department. And I totally respect all your comments, and I appreciate them. But again, I have to disagree with you, and I want to thank our city staff for the great job